Hello and welcome to Shannon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So in this week's video, I'm focusing on my front entryway and I'm going to be planting some hanging baskets and some of my containers. Now I'm not going to be planting in ground this week and I'm going to show you a little later why I'm not doing that yet. But for now, it's just going to be container focused. Now, if you guys caught my video last week about our visit to Disney World's Epcot for the Flower and Garden Festival, then you'll know I was very inspired by a lot of the different colors and how they were putting things together. So I'm taking what I saw there and kind of applying it a bit on my own scale, obviously not on a Disney scale whatsoever, but in my own way, in my containers and in my garden, and just kind of taking a little bit from the inspiration that I got while I was there. So I want to share with you guys the plants that I've picked out for my containers. Now I'm doing kind of a range of containers with different sun requirements, anywhere from more shade to part shade, and then from full sun to part sun. So I've kind of got it all over, and I need plants that are going to be able to be adaptable for different types of sun requirements. And I'm going to show you guys what plants I chose and how I'm pulling those colors together and those sun requirements together. All right, you guys, I'm so excited to get started. I've been collecting my plants here for probably the last couple of weeks, and I'm very excited and ready to get started in the planting and to bring you guys along with me. Now, I will also just want to mention that I know I've got some hanging planters here to me by the side of me, which honestly really need to be redone. And I will be getting to those, but I'm going to focus on those when I'm doing the backyard planters and hanging baskets. So that'll probably be in the next video or maybe a couple videos after this one. All right, you guys, I'm so excited. So let's get to it. Okay, so I thought that we would go over the different combinations that I'm putting together in my containers. And it took me a while to kind of decide what I wanted to do. I do have a tendency when I'm doing my spring and summer container planning to go shopping several times at different locations and pick the plants I like with an idea in mind, but I'm not married to that idea. So I kind of have a loose idea of what color scheme I might be going with or what I want to do, but ultimately that can change at any given moment, just depending on my whim when I'm actually planning it. So it did take me a while to put these plants together, but I did have a color scheme in mind at least, and kind of stayed with that. Now, when I'm showing you guys this, and I'll show you the planting as well, but I'm also trying to keep in mind the color of my house, which is generally a lighter color, but there is a stone backdrop, so that's more of a darker color. And so I try to keep all that in mind when I'm picking out the plants too, just to make sure that I'm putting something that's going to pop a little bit more against darker colors and not fade into the background. And then with lighter colors, again, just trying to put something there that's going to pop and stand out, particularly because this is in the front entryway. So you really want everything to kind of stand out and to be able to see it from a farther distance. For example, from the street, and particularly with the hanging baskets, you won't be able to really see the containers as much from the street. That's more of a as you're walking up the sidewalk, but definitely the hanging baskets. So I tried to pick some vibrant colors for those hanging baskets. So my first container is really more of a part shade to shade container. It's not fully shaded, so I needed plants that could tolerate some sun, but it definitely doesn't get all day sun. So here are the plants I chose. Oh, and I should mention that this container is against that stone wall that I was talking about, so I really wanted to go for a little bit brighter of a plant in general. So here we go. First, I got this pretty caladium, and you can see here that it's got the pink and kind of an ivory color right in the middle of those leaves, but then the green is nice and bright. And there are a lot of different caladiums that are out there. They have darker colors, they have brighter colors, so there's a lot to choose from, but I felt like this would be most appropriate for the space that I'm putting it in. Now, this caladium is called Miss Muffet, so just in case you're looking for the variety, this one is the Miss Muffet variety. It does show that it's appropriate for sun or shade. So I'm putting it in a happy medium. So I think this will be good. And I've actually tried caladium before in this spot and know that it works well. So this is a nice plant to have in that area. Now I'm pairing the impatient with the caladium, and I chose a pink color to tie in to the pink on the caladium. Now this plant is going to be a little bit more shaded from the caladium because it kind of has that big leaf that is going to cover it. And I'm going to move this to the side where it gets more shade. So because this is more of a shade plant, that'll be appropriate for that spot. And then I do usually try to include a trailing plant as well. And this one, oh my goodness, you guys, I've had Tradescantia before, but I haven't had this variety. Look at how pretty that is. So this is going to trail over. It's got the ivory and pinkish and green color. And I thought it tied in really nicely actually with the caladium as well. I like how this has the ivory on it. I just thought it was a really interesting and neat looking variety of Tradescantia, even though quite frankly, I like all of them. So this variety is called Zebra Rainbow. So it's got the stripes there, absolutely beautiful. And let me turn so you guys can see the underside of the leaves there. I just thought it was beautiful. So I think that that is going to look really nice, and that's going to complete that particular container. And I'll show you guys a little bit later in the video how that looks. Okay, so some of the next plants I got from a wholesale nursery, and I wanted to mention that to you guys because you may want to check out in your areas to see if you have any nurseries that are local that generally sell to landscapers or that usually sell commercially, because I have found over the years that a lot of these places will open to the public maybe for a handful of weeks a year, and you can get some fantastic deals. I mean, really good deals. Now, sometimes the problem with that is they aren't always marked, so you kind of got to know what you're looking for, but you can get great deals. And I swear sometimes when I go to these places, I will see the same plant that I just saw in a store for several dollars more. I mean, it's just such a significant savings. So that's something that you guys might want to check out in your areas too, just to see if you might have a wholesale nursery that opens up to the public for a few weeks a year or certain time frame when they have a lot of inventory. So with that being said, that's where I got some of my next plants. So the first one here is salvia, and I am pretty sure it is not marked, but I am pretty sure that this is the Sally Fun Blue Salvia, which I already have one planted when I did my hummingbird planter earlier, probably about a month ago. But I am pretty darn sure that this is one and the same. So I'm going to bear that in mind at the end of the season and not get rid of it, but probably put it in another container and see if it comes back next year and if I'm correct. So I've got that here. Of course, this attracts the bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, which is so important to me to try to attract all of those to my garden. So I've got that. And then next I have the Catharanthus. There's the tag there. And it's got the white with the pink in the center, just absolutely beautiful. So I'm putting these two together. And then lastly, as my trailing, I've got my beautiful Calibrachoa. Now, I don't know what type this is or what specific color this is, but I did want to share it with you guys. And I think that that's going to look really nice together. So you've got the purple here, the white, and then the pink. And you see that I'm kind of keeping in that pink theme. And you'll notice that I'm really trying to stay a lot in the purple, white, pink, and blue or blue purple theme. So probably with some other colors thrown in, because why not? So anyway, now these are for my container that's really more in the sun. So these plants will be able to stand more of a full sun environment. It will get some shade, but they're going to get a lot of sun. So I needed the plants that would be able to stand that. Now, if you guys have been watching for a while, you know I love Calibrachoa. I prefer it to petunias. I just find that they're easier to care for and they look nice all season. Salvia is another favorite of mine. And I've had the Catharanthus, I think, for a couple of years, and I've always enjoyed that as well. So these have been great plants for me to have, and some of my go-tos, with the exception of the Catharanthus. I just think I've done that one, like I said, the last couple of years, whereas the others I've done for quite a bit longer. Now, I do have a video for my top perennials and top annuals that I'll link at the end of this video. If you guys would care to take a look at those, some of these that I'm showing you guys today will be highlighted in those videos as well. All right, so we're going to move on to my next container. So the next container, again, gets more sun. I would say it's closer to full sun, but it does get some shade too. So I needed some plants that would be okay with that as well. And I've picked them out here. So my first is Angelonia. I actually did a video on this. I tried it for the first time last year and absolutely love this annual, and I'll link that in the description if y'all would like to learn more about this plant. But it's been great, very easy to take care of, and it bloomed all season long to fall. It's just been a very low maintenance plant, and that's really what I try to go for anyway, is more lower maintenance plants. I don't need to hassle with a lot of high maintenance plants. So I try to keep that to a minimum anyway. So we've got the Angelonia here. And then I have my pentas. I absolutely love pentas. I've used them for years. Very easy to take care of. They bloom. You just really don't have to do a lot to these plants. They stay pretty tidy. They, let me hold that up here. They attract the butterflies and hummingbirds and bees, and they're just lovely. They bloom all season too, and I can't sing their praises enough. Pentas are also known as Egyptian stars. And let me show you guys, I don't think I showed you the Angelonia up close, but that's how it looks up close. Now the Angelonia does come in different colors. I've seen a white, pink, dark purple, and a lilac, so a lighter purple. Also with the pentas, they come in different colors, like a lighter pink, this dark pink here, red, white, and lilac, I believe, if I didn't mention that before. So great, it's a great annual to have. So I'm very excited about that. And then I'm adding to that the Blew My Mind Dwarf Morning Glory. Now I've had this for the last couple of years in my containers, and I love it. First of all, it's got that true blue color. I think it's so pretty, and it's, again, a low maintenance plant, and I've really enjoyed having it. So I'm going to be pairing these three together, and all three of these will do well in that sunnier location where it's really closer to full sun, and then we'll get some shade, but they'll all do fine with that late afternoon shade. I've had all of these plants in that type of environment before, and they've all done well for me. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to my hanging baskets. So again, going with that bluish purple and pink and white theme, I'm sticking with that. I'm going to use these.
I have a little edit here because I accidentally called these begonias instead of geraniums, but these are geraniums. Okay, back to the video.
I may change my mind at the last minute once I get them in there, and I may go with something else. I do have a few different white flower options. I also have a couple of yellow flower options, so I may change my mind. We'll see once I get to planting. And then I've got my Calibrachoa again, and then the Blew My Mind Dwarf Morning Glory. So I'm going to pair those together and fill in those hanging baskets. Now I did want to mention to you guys, my front area where I have my hanging baskets has always been a little tricky because I have one side that gets more sun than the other. And I could choose different plants that mirror each other's coloration, but I haven't done that in the past. The way I've worked around it, or that I found works best for me, is just switching those hanging baskets. So each couple of days, I'll just switch those and move them to the opposite hanger so that one is not getting more sun than the other, and it kind of keeps them nice and balanced. So that's what I found works for me. It's not such a disparity that it causes any kind of problem doing it that way, but it's a disparity enough to where if I just left them as is, one would definitely fill in more than the other. So that's how I've kind of dealt with that and worked that out. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. I think that that's it. I'm ready to get planting, and I'll bring you guys along with me. Now, one thing that I also wanted to mention is I don't always take out all of my soil from my containers, especially the bigger containers. I may leave some of that, but I do refresh it with new soil if I'm not replacing it all. And I just kind of play it by ear and see how it looks. I'll refresh it with new potting soil, maybe partially, or mix in some perlite or something to help with the drainage, as well as some fertilizer, and just kind of refresh it. So that's something that I did want to mention to you guys. And I also wanted to mention that all these containers and the hanging baskets do have drain holes in the bottom. All of these plants want well draining soil, and so I'm making sure to use the potting mix for the containers rather than in-ground planting, because that's a heavier soil. So you want to use your potting mix in your containers, and then also making sure that they have the drain holes in the bottom so the plants won't sit in water and get root rot. So I just wanted to mention that as well. I think that that's it. I'm ready to get planting, and I'm so excited to get these in the pots and share with you guys both the planting process, which is actually really easy in containers, in my opinion, much easier than in ground, and then the final result. All right, so let's get going. All right, you guys, so hopefully I'm going to dodge a rain shower here. It got a little cloudy pretty quickly, so may have rain coming in. But I just wanted to show you guys, my idea is that I'm going to put the geranium here in the middle, and then I'm going to fill around it with the calibrachoa and the dwarf morning glory. So I'm just going to get that populated and see what I think about it when I hold up the hanging basket. The only concern I really have is if the geranium is too tall, but I don't think so. I think it'll be fine. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to go ahead and fill that in now. I did start with the fresh potting soil in this container in particular. I didn't leave anything from my last just because it didn't really look that good. It was very heavy and just didn't look good. Oh, look. Now look at you guys. I said that I did not know the color of the calibrachoa, but the type is here. It says calibrachoa neon. Oh, neon rose. So that is what this color is called. Okay, so that one is marked, which is nice. So I'm just gonna fill in around here. I'm not gonna backfill with potting soil quite yet. I wonder if that is enough or if I should do more, because this is going to fill in. Now I could even put in some yellows. I'm not quite sure about that though. I could do that though. No, I think I want to stick with this. I think I am going to go ahead and put in there. That does look better. I think I like that. I do like the geranium being in the middle. I think it looks kind of neat. And so I'm going to stick with that. And if for some reason I change my mind, then I can always just take it out. This stuff is going to fill in anyway. I could put something else in it or rearrange, but I actually like the way this looks. So I'm going to go ahead and backfill with the potting soil now, and then do my other hanging basket exactly the same, and then move on to my next container. All right, you guys, so I'm moving on to the container that is more in the shade. I actually have this that rests inside of my big container. So I'm just going to fill this up. So that's got my caladium, which I'm going to add here. I think it needs a little bit more soil on the bottom. Just break that apart a little bit. There we go. And then you guys can see why I have a gardening mat here, because I have to be the messiest gardener. So here I'm adding my Tradescantia. And then I'm just going to tuck my impatient. Ooh, that's a lot of roots there. Break that up a little bit and tuck my impatiens right here. This is the side that's going to get the most shade. So I'm just make sure that these are over here, and everybody else should be good. So I'll just backfill that, and this container will be done. So you guys will notice in all these containers that there are some gaps in the containers, and that's just to allow room for these plants and flowers to fill in. So as the season goes on, they'll fill in and look nice and full. All right, you guys, so I made it just in time, and I've got my first container here that is toward my front door with the Angelonia there in the back. And then we have the pentas right beside it. And I actually opted for a different penta with a lighter pink transitioning to the darker pink in the middle. And then we have the dwarf morning glory that'll fill in nicely and drape over. So that's my first container here. And then we have the next container with the caladium and the Tradescantia. And over to the left here is the impatiens. And that's where it gets the least amount of sun. So that will be perfect right over in that area. And this is the stone wall that I was talking about, that I really wanted to make sure that I had that bright green and brighter colors here just so they can stand out. And I think it'll look really nice once it fills in. And then in the last container here, I have the salvia and catharanthus and calibrachoa. And again, that calibrachoa will just drape over the side of this container, which is also on the darker side. So the first container was really my lighter container, and every other one that I have is on the darker side. And then last but certainly not least are my hanging baskets. And I had just really like that. I've got a lot of buds of the geraniums that'll be coming in. So once that fills in, I'll have the height from the geraniums. And then the calibrachoa and dwarf morning glories will fill in and drape over the sides of these hanging pots as well. Okay, and I just had to show you guys this. So this is why I'm not planting my front pine island quite yet, because these snapdragons look absolutely beautiful. I cannot bring myself to pull them up, so I'm leaving them for now, and I'm sure that they'll fizzle out here soon because I'm sure we'll have another hot spell. But right now, they just look too beautiful to pull, so I'm leaving them for now. But I'll do another video when I decide to go ahead and plant this area, which will probably be in the next couple weeks. All right, you guys, so I wanted to include the varieties that I could in all the plants that I used today. We're starting first with this container that contains what I believe is the Sally Fun blue salvia. And then we have the Soiree Kauai white peppermint catharanthus and the neon rose calibrachoa. This container, we have the Archangel white angelonia, pink pentas, and blue my mind dwarf morning glories. In the hanging baskets, we have white geraniums, neon rose calibrachoa, and blue my mind dwarf morning glory. And then in the last container, we have a Miss Muffet caladium, zebra rainbow tradescantia, and a pink impatient. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I had such a great time and I'm so excited to get my front containers planted. And I will be planting in ground probably in the next week or so, but I just did not have the heart to take up those snapdragons yet. They're so pretty. I just couldn't do it. So I will get those planted and I'll share with you guys when I do that. Now you guys make sure to stay tuned for my upcoming videos. I've got a lot of fun things planned. And you can do that by subscribing and clicking the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I upload a new video. All right, you guys, thank you so much again. I hope you have a wonderful week. And until next time, happy gardening and goodbye.